So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the UK government expecting the UK New Zealand deal to hurt British farmers to the tune of £150 million. So the question you need to ask yourselves and ask farmers, really, if you know any, is this the Brexit they voted for for their industry to lose £150 million? You know, especially on top of losing a lot of subsidies and other things. Is this what you wanted? Because if it is, then fair enough. So the government expects its newly signed New Zealand deal, which we're going to speak about a lot more during the week, to damage the UK's farming industry according to its own impact assessment. So the government is openly acknowledging this. Figures released on Monday show officials expect agriculture and other related food sectors to take a roughly £150 million hit from the new agreement. So again, is this the Brexit you voted for? Is it, to sabotage your own industries? The official impact assessment describes the change sparked by the deal as a relocation of resources within the economy. So essentially what they're arguing is we're going to sell out certain parts of our industries to gain in other parts in other industries, but they don't actually list what specific industries are going to benefit from this and the process of economic adjustment. So you guys are a part of the reallocation of resources. The only thing is they're taking away resources from yourself and giving it to other people. So enjoy that. Ministers were accused of selling British farmers down the river, but the Trade Secretary Anne-Marie said that the deal signed today will slash red tape, which, for who, Anne-Marie? I feel like I'm Jeff Stelling when it's like, for who, Chris Kamara? Because it doesn't do a lot. The only people it really helps are, farmers and stuff in New Zealand. The agreement will result in the scrapping of tariffs on many agricultural products coming from New Zealand, and UK farmers have said it could drive them out of business, And New Zealand, right, they are an agricultural power, but what happens when these same farmers have to compete with Australia and potentially Brazil and then America, Canada? What happens then? They'll be in real trouble. The deal is overall not expected to have a significant impact on the UK's economy, with an expected gain of between 0.02% and 0.03% by 2035, a total of £12 per person, which is nothing, especially in over a decade's time. That will be pocket change. Not even pocket change. That will be like, a couple items from the shop at best, because it's not great now, £12, unless you're really struggling. But notice the way they spin this, ladies and gentlemen. 0.02% and 0.03% by 2035. Now that's probably the best case scenario. Do you know why? Because we know that the deal is only going to add about 0.01% in the short term, which is the next few years. But that's best case scenario because it has a 0.03% margin of error. So it could add 0.0%. Or it could add minus 0.01% to our GDP. So essentially, we could lose money off this trade deal. It won't do so for New Zealand because they're a much smaller economy, and this will benefit them a lot more, especially in geopolitics terms, because they can look to the UK as a new export market rather than China, which China has a lot of control over that part of the world when it comes to trade because they have so much buying power. And buying power is the key in trade negotiations. That's why the EU and the US can get such good trade deals. And one of the reasons why the UK is struggling, because we are a population of around 66 million. That's a problem because the EU have hundreds of millions of people, same as the Americans. And the other problem is that we're desperate for trade deals and other countries will take us for a ride, which they are. We're signing a trade deal that could potentially add nothing and, worst case scenario, makes our economy lower than it is now. That's madness. Absolute madness. Which country sells out its own people like that? But officials admit it could have sharper, more concentrated effects on certain sectors of the economy, some negative. Because FTAs do have that. Free trade agreements do have downsides. The EU-Canada deal, for example, Canada signed up to certain agreements on cheese, which Canadian farmers weren't happy with. But, that's the difference between the EU, which is a world superpower in a trade sense, and Canada, which isn't. Canada's not, on the table with Big Boss. The EU are. The overall structure of the UK economy remains broadly unchanged by the agreement. Why? Because it does very little, but in certain sectors it will do a lot of damage. However, part of the gains result from a reallocation of resources. Very much PR or HR speak of, we've got to let you go because we're reallocating resources and other things. But, when your resource is your livelihood, what are you going to do? From agriculture, forestry, and fishing, which has had a real rough time. Hope you guys enjoyed that, the ones that voted for it. Around minus 48 million, and semi-processed foods around minus 97 million from these industries that are already struggling from losing their biggest export market. It's crazy. Farmers have previously warned of huge downsides to the deal, with the National Farmers Union saying it could damage the viability of many British farmers in the years ahead. And the NFU have consistently talked about the problems just Brexit on its own leaving the EU has caused for farmers. This will make it far worse. Some concerned about the deal related to whether UK farmers will face unfair competition because they have to enforce higher production standards than those abroad. The UK has far higher standards than Australia, and I think we do have higher standards than New Zealand, but I'm not sure the extent of it, because New Zealand and the EU do have an equivalency deal, which means their standards are decent. New Zealand have decent food standards, but they're not as high as the UK. So the UK kind of agricultural market will be undercut by countries that don't have the same high standards. That's a huge problem, and that's what's going to lead to a conversation of potentially the government and farmers potentially saying, okay, look, we can't compete with them, so we have to deregulate. Maybe we have to use hormones as well, or maybe we have to lower our food standards as well in other regards. And that's just poorer quality of life for the animals, and also poorer quality food for Britain. Kate White, campaigns chief at the environmental charity WWF, said on Monday that the new free trade agreement opens the door to food produced in ways that harm nature and fuel the climate crisis, undermining the UK's own transition to more sustainable farming. Because the truth is, the British government are transitioning to farmers who don't farm. We've spoken about that previously as well, where the UK are telling farmers, just manage the land or whatever, turn them into nature reserves and things like that, nature parks, and we'll pay you for that, essentially paying them not to do their job, which is to farm. She said the UK should adopt a set of core standards, including environmental standards set in UK law, which will allow us to open up trade in the best products from around the world, but ensure we can filter out goods that are produced at high environmental costs. So saying we set up like a tier system. So maybe we say we're not going to buy from this set of Australian farmers because of the way they farm, but we'll buy from this set of Australian farmers because they have high standards like us, or higher standards. But yeah, the best products from around the world, that's not going to happen because we're desperate. We're reaching for trade deals, and other countries will take advantage. You've had people in interviews taking digs at Ardern, the leader of New Zealand, when she's doing what's best for the people of New Zealand, which is taking Boris Johnson for the mug he is, and getting a good trade deal out of him for the people of New Zealand. Responding to Monday's news, NFU President Minette Batters, she's the person who said Boris Johnson. I think she said Boris Johnson lied to her about certain things, which shock her. Said there would ultimately be no limit on the amount of New Zealand goods can export to the UK in about 10 to 15 years' time. She added, I've consistently pointed out the risk to UK farmers and longer term for people wanting to buy British food from the government's approach to trade deals is not the individual deals themselves, but the cumulative impact of each deal when added together. The deal today shows I was right to be concerned, because this deal in itself will have a £150 million impact altogether on kind of the agri-foods industry, composite foods that are built up of different things like ready meals, and farmers themselves. Collectively they'll have a £150 million hit. But the Australia deal, you haven't factored that into the hit, and any future deals with other countries that are known for being agriculturally powerful or strong. Once again, there appears to be extremely little in this New Zealand trade deal to benefit British farmers, because it's not designed to help British farmers. It's really designed just for optics, because the EU and New Zealand don't have a trade deal. That's why we're doing this. UK farm businesses face significantly higher costs of production than farmers in New Zealand, and margins are likely to tighten further in the face of rising input costs, higher energy bills, and labour shortages. The end of freedom of movement there really having an impact on farmers as well. The government is now asking British farmers to go toe-to-toe with some of the most export-orientated farmers in the world. They're not, small-scale farmers, on the hill, have a couple of sheep and cows. These are export-orientated. This is what they're built to do, is, mass production of animals. Without the serious long-term and properly funded investment in UK agriculture that can enable us to do so, the sort of strategic investment in farms, more socialism, and exports that the New Zealand government has made in recent decades. Mark Tufnell, president of the Country Land and Business Association, said there were clearly opportunities for New Zealand farmers in this deal, but what is less clear, what are the opportunities for us in the UK? And they talk about slashing red tape and more opportunities for businesses to export to New Zealand, but who is benefiting specifically from this agreement? That's what I'm struggling with here. He added, over time, New Zealand will be able to sell even larger quantities of meat and dairy produce into the UK, often produced much more cheaply than we can do ourselves. I think land in New Zealand is cheaper than it is in the UK. That's another problem for UK farmers trying to compete. This risks undercutting UK farmers and putting a question mark over the viability of their businesses, and a lot of them will just sell up and leave. And that'll be cheap land for Tories to buy, really. Government is leaving the industry in the dark about what this deal really means for agriculture, setting a worrying precedent for future trade deals we may strike with other major food exporters, and they'll be looking at this thinking we can get something for our farmers, many of which have far lower animal welfare standards and environmental standards than we do, which the UK has some of the highest standards in the world. Government promised that suitable checks and balances would be put in place to ensure we would not undercut in this way. So far, they have yet to materialise. And do we even have the kind of facilities to do all of these checks on imports from Australia and New Zealand to make sure they're up to UK standards? I don't think we do. We're struggling right now just off exports from the EU, and that doesn't even include exports from Ireland, which, Ireland, a major exporter of meat to the UK, and we're not even checking that stuff either because we don't have the facilities for that. Ministers, however, keen to sign trade deals abroad in order to highlight the supposed benefit of leaving the European Union, which is 0.01% at best in the case of New Zealand. Lib Dem spokesperson Sarah Olney said, the government have negotiated a trade deal that will effectively damage UK farming communities and will bring next to no tangible benefits to our economy. True. Conservatives have proven they are utterly unable to negotiate trade deals that boost the UK economy, and unfortunately this agreement is no exception. The economic benefits are a drop in the ocean, and they will do nothing to mitigate the damage from the red tape and paperwork caused by Johnson's shambolic EU trade deal. And this is where the Lib Dems can do damage here, because they are operating predominantly in the south. There is a lot of farmland there, and they need to make the case to farmers. The Tories don't care about you. They never have done. We are the party that will care. We are the party that will do something to help farmers in this country. We're not going to sign crappy trade deals that sell you guys out. This is where the Lib Dems have a big opportunity to take away rural voters from the Tories. And the question is, are the Lib Dems smart enough to take it? We'll see next time out. But this is what the Lib Dems have to do. It can't be a case of, that sucks, what can you do? The Lib Dems actively have to make a case. So do Labour, that, it doesn't have to be this way. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. £150 million hit to these industries thanks to this damn trade deal, and very little in terms of benefits for the people of the UK. But I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.